Ladies and gentlemen, it is a wonderful Saturday here on the Money Manziel MMA channel. While it is a fight day, I have a feeling that people want to talk about stuff other than the fight card because, frankly, we're just not that interested in it as a collective. So, what I am bringing you guys today is the three fighters that I still believe in, that I still believe can make something of their careers and can still be successful UFC fighters. There's been a lot of these guys in the history of the sport. I think the big ones that ring true are guys like Nick Diaz, Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, even at his current state. Where these are guys, Nick Diaz, for example, suspended for a long time. Clearly, I don't know Nick Diaz personally, but it's very clear that there are mental health issues. There have been reported drug issues. He was in rehab for a while. Um, Tony Ferguson, a lot of brain damage conversation, trying to fight way past when he should have retired. He did win in boxing recently, which is great for him. But people wanted to see Tony retire for a long time, and they still believed every time he fought that he could do it. And with Conor, even now, people are still saying, oh, if he just locks in, we still believe in Conor. He can still come back and win and be his old self. These stories usually have one ending. They end in people calling for the fighter to retire. And they are usually right. With Nick Diaz, I think retirement is the right move now, and it was back then. And Tony Ferguson, absolutely, it was the right move for him to retire. But what I want to bring to you guys today is three guys currently in the UFC who I still believe in the same way that a lot of people believe in Nick Diaz and Tony Ferguson. I still believe in these guys. Number one on my list of fighters that I still believe can do it, man. I believe these guys can still make a run at the belt. They can still win fights. They still are capable. Adrian Yanez. Um, Listen, I don't know how long some of you have been watching the UFC. I think Yanez was right. He was kind of budding as a potential star in the UFC right around the time that I really got into the sport. I spent years watching YouTube videos about the sport, playing the video game. I spent a lot of time watching the best moments of all these legendary fights back in like 2018, 2019. But Adrian Yanez was like the first guy who I really watched come up in the sport on the Contender Series and then, into the budding career that he had. His first four fights, a round one KO on the Contender Series, round one KO versus Victor Rodriguez, round three KO versus Gustavo Lopez, and a round two KO win versus Randy Costa, which was a jump up in competition at the time for him. And even past those first four fights, who could forget what he did to Tony Kelly? UFC Austin, that was Cater versus Emmett, an incredible card. I recommend everyone, if you have Fight Pass, to go back and watch the UFC Austin card. Great fight after great fight. Either way, that fight was like the big moment for Adrian Yanez, where everyone was like, holy shit, Adrian Yanez has arrived. There was a moment, and you guys, if you were watching at the time, I don't know if you're new, old fans, whatever, if you were watching that fight in that moment, there was a brief moment in time where I think people really thought that Adrian Yanez was going to be the next guy at bantamweight. The boxers that had made their names heard, like Cody Garbrandt, even Dillashaw had great boxing, Cruz had great boxing. These guys at bantamweight who kind of made it a thing to have the fast, slick hands. And dude, Adrian Yanez, for a moment in time, really looked like he was going to fucking be a threat for the belt. And what followed Adrian Yanez was Rob Font. Speaking of boxers, Rob Font came in there, UFC 287, April. That was the Pereira Adesanya card. At the time of that fight versus Adrian Yanez, Rob Font was ranked like ninth. He was coming off a couple of losses, I believe. He really was in bad shape. People thought he was done, that he needed to retire. He was too old. Um, and, Adrian Yanez was on top of the world in terms of hype. I believe he was a favorite. If I'm not mistaken, he was a favorite versus Rob Font. And he was getting co-signed by dudes like Jorge Masvidal. A bunch of the guys on the main card were like, bro, like, Adrian Yanez is the real deal. Everyone thought he was the real dude. He moved in and out so well. He had nasty body combos. His hands were fucking fast as shit. Um, Powerful, was knocking a lot of people out. Other than a decision versus Davey Grant, which a lot of people thought he lost. By the time of the Rob Font fight, either way, people thought Adrian Yanez was going to win. I thought he was going to win emphatically. I thought he was going to knock him out. And dude, Adrian Yanez in that fight looked the worst that I had ever seen him look. Rob Font made him look pathetic compared to him. Like he was in a different league completely. Like Yanez was coming from like the LFA. You know what I mean? Rob Font went in there and pieced this dude up with the jab, kept landing on the chin and on the nose specifically of Adrian Yanez, and then landed a nasty clubbing right hand that put down Adrian Yanez before putting him out on the ground. I remember being heartbroken because it was like the first guy that I had like organically found and watched, and seeing him lose, I was so sad. I was like, dude, like this guy has such a good style, but it's okay. He'll bounce back in his next fight. The four fights that Adrian Yanez has had in the UFC recently is a KO loss to Rob Font, a KO loss to Jonathan Martinez, a TKO win over Vinicius Salvador, we'll talk about that, and a split decision loss to Daniel Marcos. Um, the style of Adrian Yanez has not changed. No matter the losses, no matter the performances, he still is going out there to box your head off and look for a finish. Um, However, he has changed a little in kind of the stance and the aggressiveness. I think he works more as a build into the fight type of guy now, where he's trying to pour it on late, he's trying to land the nasty combos, but he's not going for broke early, which is what got him in trouble versus Rob Font, where he really went for it and Font was able to jab him back to range where he was able to finish him. Jonathan Martinez kicked the legs out from underneath him in their fight, and that was a sad watch. Then there was like a moment in the Vinicius Salvador fight where you're like, holy shit, like this dude's back. He went out there, blitzed right through him. Easy stuff. And then a heartbreaking loss to Marcos. I had the fight score to Daniel Marcos. I don't know what other people thought, but I thought Daniel Marcos won. But either way, Giannis has had such a tough run, dude, and I still believe in him, man. Like I still think his style works at bantamweight. He grew up in kickboxing. He knows how to check leg kicks. I just think he got caught off guard by Martinez, or maybe he thought he underestimated him or something. But his boxing is so slick that I think it should work. I don't know who they need to give this dude. I know he has a fight next week, but hopefully he wins, and then we can see him start to build back up because Yanez is so exciting to watch. Every single fight that you watch Adrian Yanez in is a barn burner to some degree. Um, I still believe in him. I don't know if you guys are on the same wavelength as me, but there was definitely a time where Adrian Yanez was fucking the king of the world for a moment versus Tony Kelly. Um, and I hope that we can get that dude back. So Yanez is number one. Number two, and if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know what's coming. Cody No Love Garbrandt. I still believe in Cody, dude. I always will. His first six fights, he had four KO wins, and then a decision win ultimately against Dominic Cruz, where he took the belt off of him. Listen, a lot of people talk about the Dominic Cruz fight now, and there are casual fans that look at it as like, oh my god, it's the greatest title performance ever. Which, if you go back and watch, is not necessarily true. Cruz kept it close in a lot of rounds. Garbrandt just had moments. I would equate the Cody Garbrandt and Dominic Cruz fight to Marlon Vera versus Rob Font. Where people remember that fight as, or the way people talk about it is like, damn, like Cheeto Vera's fucking nasty. Look at all the knockdowns. He hurt him so many times. But if you watch the fight, Rob Font outlanded him. He was winning a majority of the rounds until these big moments. That was kind of how the Cody Dominic Cruz fight was. And yet we don't take anything away from Marlon Vera and the Rob Font fight. We still talk about it as an amazing performance. Because guess what? It doesn't matter what you did the whole round if you get knocked down a bunch of times. Right? And that's what happened with Cody Garbrandt in this one, where he would take a lot of the round off. Like he was kind of just moving around, looking for moments. And then he would drop Cruz and emote on him and then land a bunch in a row for about a minute before going back to skirting around the octagon, because they knew that was the way to beat Dominic Cruz, was to pick your moments versus him. So I think it was a masterclass. Rather than a fight where people were like, oh, overrated title performance, it was a masterclass for Dominic Cruz in kind of a strategy standpoint. Now, with Cody Garbrandt, right? People talk about the title reign. They talk about the losses to TJ Dillashaw, which ultimately you can see led to a serious decline in performance. And I think it wasn't even the fight. You know what I mean? Like, there were rumors about Cody Garbrandt being a hard sparring guy, a lot of concussions before the Cruz fight. In fact, Cruz had a lot of trash talk about it. But ultimately, with Cody Garbrandt, I think it was the emotions from the TJ Dillashaw fight that ended up biting him. in the end, because when it comes to TJ Dillashaw and the Cody Garbrandt fight, there was so much going on outside of the cage. There was so much beef. There was so much animosity that Cody fought with emotion. In knocking down TJ Dillashaw in the first round, I believe was the worst thing that he could have done. Because then he came out thinking he could finish him and thinking he could get him out of there. And then he got put on his ass and finished. And then the second fight, after a really long layoff, all the way to August, 10 pay-per-views later, on also a massive card, he gets finished again in earlier in worse fashion. I believe it was a head kick that put him down. To then come back out there in March and then be KO'd again in the first round, stiff this time by Pedro Munoz. I think a lot of people thought it was over. And then you had a sunset where he won, but I mean, it's, at the end of the day, it's a sunset. Like, we can pretend like it was an amazing win, and it was a great KO, but a sunset was pushing 40 at that point. Like, I don't know. Then Rob Font jabbed the face off of him. Kai Kara France knocked him out cold. Or not cold, but he was not very conscious. And yeah, man, it's just been a tough run for Cody, but I will always believe in Cody Garbrandt. I will say that as a believer, the Raoni Barcelos fight felt a little different. It felt like Cody is a guy who I felt like has always had a great gas tank. Went out there and gassed versus Raoni Barcelos, who is not very good at anything. He just kind of is a vet. And Cody looked good in the first round and then just kind of quit on himself. It was very strange to watch. It just felt different a little bit. And I remember, this is a serious story. I remember when Cody Garbrandt was losing in the final round of this fight, I legitimately got on Twitter, I typed out a tweet to my fucking 30 followers, and I deleted it because I was so heartbroken. I pump faked a sad tweet about Cody Garbrandt to 30 followers because I was so upset that he was losing. That's a real thing that happened. But I was so heartbroken by it, and I have a hard time believing that the old Cody Garbrandt is not out there. You're talking about a dude who wanted to square up with Conor McGregor in his prime, was not afraid of anybody ever. He wanted to scrap at all times, literally. I miss the Cody Garbrandt that fucking knocked out Tage Mizugaki, that knocked out Thomas Almeida, that did work to Marcus Brimage. Cody Garbrandt as a boxer was so amazing to watch. He was so powerful with his right hand. And I think we all would love to see the old Cody back, and we all still believe in him. So, Cody, if you're listening, brother, we still support you. Come back anytime you want. Benoit Saint-Denis is the third and final guy here. Listen, I know he's on a win streak now, and it's why I'm a bigger believer than I ever was. Dude, Benoit Saint-Denis, during that 5-fight run where he was finishing literally everybody, King Von levels of, marauder type of stuff, Like, this guy, the way that Joe Rogan, that I was talking about him, that we were talking about Benoit Saint-Denis, was on some King Von shit. Listen, every single one of us watching this video right now all thought that Benoit Saint-Denis was going to be Dustin Poirier. We all put $100 on him to submit Dustin Poirier. These are things we can agree on. I personally put my first marriage on the line for that fight. So, it was a shared opinion from all of us. But either way, this dude, when he came in, the Eleusa Zaleski dos Santos fight at 170 up 15 pounds, this guy took the worst beating I've ever seen in my life and survived to the bell. He then finished 5 in a row. He is all finishes in his career. He's a 100% finish rate, which is nuts. But Frevola was coming off a 3-fight KO win streak. Moises was coming off a win and looked great at the time. Ismael Bonfim was a massive prospect at the time. A lot of people believed in him. He beat the dog shit out of Miranda, and he submitted Stoles. Benoit Saint-Denis was the fucking real deal. Now, unfortunately, he had a real tough run after these, tough fucking pictures where I feel like all these dudes who get these tough flicks taken of them, they then have these horrifying runs that they go on where they just get the shit beaten out of them. Where, dude, Poirier, and like I said, we all thought that Benoit was going to win. But either way, Poirier put this dude out stiff. He had staff, it is what it is. And I believe he had staff again for the Moicano fight, but I don't think it was related to him losing to Moicano. I do believe it was related to Poirier. Dude, Renato Moicano beat Benoit Saint-Denis so bad in the first round That is from like 10 minutes of fight and really only 5 minutes of a first round beating. In the second round, Moicano was a little tired, so he was taking the round off. Benoit Saint-Denis won the second round with that look on his face, by the way. That is insane. Um, I believe in Benoit Saint-Denis. I always will. And life is really beautiful as a Benoit Saint-Denis fan now. You know, he's coming off the Prepelec submission. He then submitted Mauricio Rufy. Still has a 100% finish rate. That is how incredible this dude Benoit Saint-Denis is. Still has a 100% finish rate. He's been in the UFC for like 4 years now. I still believe in dude. I still believe he can be a champion. That's a conversation for another day. I think he runs through Beneil Dariush, and you're going to be surprised to hear this. I think he KOs Beneil Dariush. I think he's got underrated power on the feet. I think Beneil's not going to know what to do with him. And I think he could get Beneil down. I think the grappling is going to be fascinating in that fight. Beneil's still a high level grappler. I think Benoit could finish this on the feet if he wanted to. So I still believe in Benoit Saint-Denis. I always do. Life has been beautiful as a fan of his. And yeah, man, there was a point in time where I legitimately thought this dude was invincible. Like fucking running through people. I was so excited every time he fought. It was unbelievably exciting. Um, and yeah, dude, like you're talking about Adrian Yanez, a guy I still believe in, and I hope he wins next week. We're talking about Cody Garbrandt, who I hope gets booked soon for a fight and gets a tattoo removed from his eye, and Benoit Saint Denis, who ultimately is the greatest marauder that the sport has ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, the three guys these are guys that I really think had their moment and I think can still have their moment. There's some guys that I don't think will ever get back to the glory that they had, right? You look at Israel Adesanya, who I believe will never get back to the hype level that he had, just because of his recent performances. Sean O'Malley was another one I considered putting in here, but I don't think Sean O'Malley will ever touch the heights of stardom that he once had. Brian Ortega was another one I thought about putting in here. But Brian Ortega to me is I don't believe in Ortega anymore. He hasn't shown me anything to think that he can still do it, and I don't know why the UFC keeps booking him at featherweight, but that's a conversation for another day. I thought about Sergey Pavlovich, but I just don't think he's going to turn back the clock to his old style. I think now he's going to just be kind of a boring, at-range striker that can get past the fat guys. Um, dude. And I made this video because of Adrian Yanez fighting next week because I was just thinking about how cool he was for a little bit in time. The pop that dude got, I recommend you go back and watch his fight versus Tony Kelly because it's a masterclass. But the pop that he got when they were introducing him in the cage was fucking insane. Always will love Adrian Yanez and his style. Shout out to dude. I really thought he was special, and I still think he is special as a boxer, as someone who really enjoys watching boxing in the UFC. Um, I think Adrian Yanez is still the real deal. With Cody Garbrandt, he's had bad performances. Listen, this is going to be a weird opinion for a guy who's at 34 now. I think Cody should try and cut to 125 again. Let me know down below if you agree with that or not. He looked pudgy at 135 in his last fight, like pudgier and fatter than he usually looks. I think he can make 125. I think he knows he can make 125. He tried to do it for the Figgy fight before getting COVID. And then he did do it for Kai Kara France, where I mean his chin was in question, but Kai Kara France can fucking crack, so there's something there for sure. I just I don't know, man. I believe that Cody can still do it if he goes down to flyweight. That's just my opinion. In terms of Benoit Saint-Denis, I think he's already in the middle of doing it. So, I think the video makes a lot of sense to say that Benoit can still make it happen. I think he can get back to that height. I think he needs to show people that he's still confident on the feet. That's still a big question mark, but in due time, and I believe he will show it versus Beneil, and then it's on to Gamrot after that, where we will win again. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for the video today. I hope you all enjoy. I thought about making a video yesterday, but it just didn't come out the way I wanted it to, so I decided to kind of hold it off for another time. Um, listen, Money Manziel MMA channel, it is a fight day. It is a Saturday. I hope you all enjoy the fights, and maybe they're better than they look on paper. My TikTok is at Money Manziel MMA. You guys know I post a TikTok every day. I post a YouTube short every day. I'm still doing it for the love of the game. I decided to switch it up a little bit. This wasn't like a straight comedy video, like just making fun of dudes the whole time. Um, but I appreciate all the love and support anyway, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, man. It was a lot of fun to make, and a lot of fun to dive into the careers and the old stardom that some of these dudes had for a little bit. Um, If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. If you're old to the channel, then also subscribe down below. Like, comment, and subscribe, like I just said. And I will see you in the next one, boys. Probably will be a fight night recap, assuming the card isn't dog shit. If it is dog shit, it'll be a rant. So get ready for that. I will see you on the next one. Peace out, boys.